Hi. Hi, baby. Hello, peppers. Hi. Hi, peppers. Hello. Hi. So I have the dog here for a little while, and this video is about injuries and scars and such like that they've had in My Hero Academia since or the main ones. The bigger ones are ones that are major impacts on the story or show like a major character thing that happens in the story. So I wanted to go over those. But before that, I kind of wanted to do a small list of like some of the injuries I've had or some of the stuff that's happened with Rainy over the years. So this bozo, Rainy is a Samoyed, as I've mentioned that before. He has decided that he likes to try to fight with huskies whenever we're at the dog park. Well, it happened once and I wasn't there. My mom had taken him and he got into a fight with a husky, and they did have to take him to the emergency room, and it made him have to lose one of his canines. So yeah, Bozo only has 3 canines now. He's like, but I'm still cute. Yes, you are still cute. I haven't really had any major injuries in my life, thank God. I don't ever want to. I haven't had any broken bones. I've sprained my ankles multiple times, and I've had, skinned knees like any kid does, or, I've had, skinned elbows and stuff like that, like any kid has had, or, any kid had that didn't, grow up in, like a rubber room or a padded room or whatever. Which if you grew up in a padded room, I'm sorry. I mean, like if it was like a room that you could bounce all over the walls or something like that, but that's getting away from the point. The most major injury I ever had was I have a scar on my chin. You can't see it or anything like that, at least not from that angle, but I have a scar on my chin that I got when I was in kindergarten or first grade. It was a stupid thing that happened. It wasn't like I was stupid, but it was a stupid thing that happened. I had been moving a chair to go and sit at a group for, sit at a table with my group to do, whatever it was we were going to do for the group activity. And the chair got caught on this hopscotch rug that we had, and it got caught, and chair flipped. I flipped. One of the chair legs lands right above my eye. My chin slams into the table. And the teacher, amazing woman, love the woman. We're actually naming a new, I think it's a new school here in town. I don't remember if it's a elementary school or a middle school or a high school. They're naming a new school after her. And she was an amazing woman, and I loved her. Is still an amazing woman because she's still alive. She was there when they announced that they were going to name it after her. She's great. Shout out to Ada Robinson. If anybody ever from Lincoln, Nebraska ever sees this, Ada Robinson, yes. She picked me up, took me over to the sink to try to see, what was going on. And like, she was more worried about like above my eye. And then she noticed that I was bleeding here. And then it's like, I remember like getting rushed down the hallway to the nurse's office because I was bleeding a fair amount, because facial injuries actually bleed a lot more than, they look a lot worse than they actually are, because there's a lot of veins in your face, so it's like a cut will actually look a lot worse because of the blood than it actually is. I'm in the nurse's office, the whole, well, we have to put an ice pack on it, and then they called my mom, and my mom came and got me, and I had to have because I was terrified of stitches, and they just did like this. She did take me to the hospital. I had like this big butterfly bandage on my chin. I just covered my chin for like a couple of weeks while everything healed up, and the scar's still there. I still have the scar, but it healed, and I couldn't really do too much. I couldn't do gym in case I fell and hit it and caused it to open up again, but eventually it healed and then I was fine. Still have the scar. I've got scrapes and such on my elbows and stuff like that. And my previous job, not my current job, but my previous job, I got bruises on my arms and my legs and such from that job. And I have I'm not gonna, my mom's had both of her knees replaced. Given my knees, I'm not going to be surprised in the future if I have to have my knees replaced as well, or shoulder surgery or anything like that. From my previous job, I had worked at a Goodwill. Yeah, I had worked at a Goodwill for 5 years, and you do a lot of physical stuff there. You may not necessarily be the one that does all the furniture moving or stuff like that, but between putting out clothing and hanging clothing and sorting clothing and items and everything like that, and just standing around for 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on your shift, you still do a lot of physical damage to your body at the times. But slight thing there, and I've never had any major broken bones or anything like that. I don't ever want to. Knock on wood. That was the desk and not the door. Silly puppy. Right. Has I had any other injuries, Mommy? Not in the time that we've had you. Mister, I've been hit by a car twice. But you were fine both times. Rainy, yes, I was fine. I also liked to run away and then come back. Yeah, we know that. But onto the actual series itself in regards to scars and injuries that have been accrued over the course of time in regards to My Hero Academia, or the main ones that we've seen throughout the story. I may make reference to some of the things that we've seen in like Vigilantes, but this is mostly just in the main series. I am also going to point out that this is not talking about deaths. I have a whole other video about deaths. That's a different video. And if you want to watch that, go and watch it. It's not that hard to find. Just like type in My Hero Academia deaths or something like that, and you'll find it on the site. But the first one up is, of course, All Might. He's the hero that we're introduced to at the beginning of the series, and he explains, he's got like this huge, his stomach and chest and everything are just like covered in like these scars and everything, and injuries and such that he got from All for One during their battle. And he's just got so many injuries and cuts and scars and everything from so many of the surgeries that he had. He's like missing a lung and like other parts of his stomach and everything like that. And like we see that at the beginning, in like the second episode, and beginning, in the first chapter, we see that, and that's not fun to have to watch. And of course, that affects him, and like he coughs up the blood all the time and everything. So we see that throughout the course of the series, and then of course after he does have his final battle against All for One again, he's also hurt his arms and such during that battle, and he hurts himself more during the fight at the USJ and everything against the first Nomu. He injures himself there. Why are you so low on the bed? And so, and I just don't know if I want to be on camera. Decide that for yourself. But so we've seen All Might have various injuries and such like that, and scars and such. He's probably once everything does fully heal, even though he doesn't have all of his powers back, and obviously he's still very much injured. And then we move on to Endeavor. Endeavor has had the main injury that we've seen Endeavor incur throughout the course of the series is, of course, when he's fighting against the Hood Nomu, and he ends up, getting, very badly injured on his face, and he ends up getting this, huge scar on his face and everything, which, reminiscent of where Shoto's scar is, of course. But, he has that huge scar in his face, and of course it takes him a little while to recover, so he's probably got some new scars and scratches and scrapes and such like that from that battle. And the other thing is, like, his quirk causes him to overheat, which also can cause damage to himself. And then, of course, we have Best Jeanist, moving on down the line into other heroes. We have Best Jeanist, who, after the whole battle that happened at Camino Ward and everything, he, had used, so much of his power to try to, keep everybody from getting blown away with the force of all the attacks that were going off. He ended up getting very majorly injured to the point where he is, like, missing a lung now. And, he had to pretend to be dead for a while because of Hawks, part of the, undercover thing that Hawks was doing. And, and he's, made his triumphant return, and he's, has been helping Deku and such like that, but he's still very much gets problems caused by that. Even though he's, he's missing a lung and he's mostly healed, he still can, overexert himself. And we see that during the battle when he's trying to help against, like, Shigatamakia and stuff like that, when he shows up at the end of the battle. And then we have Mirko. I want to talk about Mirko a little bit. Mirko, of course, during the hospital raid, She, of course, is, just very intent on taking out all of these different Nomu and everything that are there. And she has this quote that I just love this quote. It's not the quote on the end of the video, that's a different quote, but the quote here that I have from Mirko is, the second this guy came into view, my body just knew. My rabbit survival instincts told me that this dude is bad news. I think she's referring to either the Nomu or the doctor himself that created the Nomu. I don't remember which one she's actually referring to in this sentence, but this thing, I'm pretty sure it's a Nomu, or Shigaraki also, it cannot be released into the world no matter the cost. I do believe, if I remember correctly, she is actually referring to Shigaraki because Shigaraki is currently, at that time, he's currently going through the process of having, one for, all for one being put into his body and everything, and going through that, to get his body to the point where he can control it to the nth degree. What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm talking about something serious. And, so she just, hi? What are you doing? Are you trying to eat your own foot again? The dog has a weird tendency of trying to eat his own foot. Hey. Hey, stop. Hey, stop. What are you doing? Silly dog. But, Mirko is doing, she's literally willing to sacrifice herself, and we see throughout the course of that battle, she loses an arm and a leg. She loses her left arm and her right leg during the course of that fight. And she, at one point, she just literally I don't remember if it's because of something that happens with the Nomu, or if it's during the process of trying to stop Shigaraki that the decay gets on her and she has to get her own arm or leg off. I don't remember exactly which one. But then she basically, she does basically just tourniquet her own arm, I think, at one point. Or tourniquet is where you take it's try to stop the bleeding or slow the bleeding on an appendage or something like that. You're supposed to take cloth and tie it around your arm or your leg or the limb or whatever to the point that it's so tight that you're restricting blood flow, because you either want to stop the blood flow or slow the blood flow in case in case you can't stop bleeding, or it slows down the likelihood of you bleeding out and such. So we see that, and now Mirko is currently in the manga. The last time we saw her was just this little flash of her. She's basically yeah, no, I'm gonna be part of the thing that takes down Shigaraki. And we see her just helping strap on her new, she's definitely gonna have a new prosthetic arm and a prosthetic leg, and that leg better be able to keep up with her regular leg, because of her her bouncing and her fighting and everything like that. Those legs and that leg and arm better be able to keep up with it, because she's not done yet. And she's she was willing to go against against the odds to try to do what she could to take out Shigaraki and as many Nomu as she could in that fight, and that probably helped a bit. And then, of course, we have Ragdoll, a member of the Wild Pussycat. She's the more greenish and yellow one. She's adorable. Her quirk was that she had the ability to track so many people within a certain radius of her. I think she could keep track of different targets in a certain radius of her. And she ended up getting her quirks taken by, All for One, because he's she had this great quirk, and when I see a great quirk, I just have to take it for myself. And that's because she was, kidnapped along with, Bakugo, and, along with Bakugo when they were at the training camp, when they attacked the training camp, with the Vanguard Action Squad from the League of Villains. She got her quirk taken from her. She thankfully is still alive, and she's still okay. And she's still a member of the Wild Pussycat. She's technically retired, but she's also just kind of acting as their secretary at the moment. So she can still be, around her family. And so we've seen that from her. And then we had Ingenium, of course, Ida's brother, Tensei. He, of course, was injured and paralyzed by Stain. And at this point, he is still paralyzed. We have not really seen too much else of an update on him. But he is, at least probably to a degree, on the path to recovery. Don't know if it would be to the point where he would actually be able to walk again, or if they're, given the technology and medical advances that they've had in the My Hero Academia world, from what we've seen, I would not be surprised in the slightest if there is something that they can, do to help him to the point where he can walk again, maybe not be able to be a hero again, or not like the full-fledged hero that he was as Ingenium himself, where he's, racing around and everything, but something to the point where he can at least be out and about more and he's less reliant on a wheelchair. Although him and Ida's mother doesn't seem to have, him and Tenya's brother, their mother does not seem to have a problem with helping take care of him. But, she wants her baby okay. She wants both of her sons to be okay. And she seems to be very proud of both of them, which is also good. And then we have Mount Lady. And, I mentioned her and her, skin tight outfit and such like that in, the women and girls body image one. But a reason I wanted to bring her up here in regards to scars or injuries is because during the battle at Camino Ward and such, the hideout raid arc, or that attack arc, she, when, Izuku and Ida and Shoto and, Kiroshima and Momo and such, when they're trying to save, Bakugo, and, the boys are flying through the air to try to get Bakugo, Mount Lady, yeah, she was there and she was part of the attack and everything and trying to take out a bunch of the Nomu and such. And because she was so large, she could just kind of like hold them in place so they can't escape or pin them down. And she like jumps up in the way to prevent, I think it's Mr. Compress that tries to jump up and try to grab Bakugo, because if he gets a hold of him, he can shrink him back down into the marble again and then they'll have him again. But she, gets in front of him and like blocks his attack. And I do believe, I don't remember if that's where she gets her scar, or if it's from later on she gets her scar during the fight with Gigantomachia, because she does take a fair amount of damage during the fight with Gigantomachia as well. I just don't remember if that's exactly, because currently in the manga she does have a scar over one of her eyes, or around one of her eyes. And she's not hiding it from what we can tell, but she's kind of to the point where she's just like, no, I am part of this group, because she's part of the group that was like kind of working with Endeavor and, Night, and Hawks and, such, working with them to try to, help Izuku. She's kind of part of that. And we'll see what happens with the rest of that. She's, she kind of started off as like this hero at the beginning of the series that we see in the first episode, where she, takes out this, big monster villain and everything. And, she seemed to take a lot of pride in her appearance and her youth and everything, and, her sexuality and her, her seduction and everything. And, I mean, I can't blame her for that. I mean, like, even in, like, Marvel and DC and such, we see how other female heroes do kind of use that to their advantage where they can. It's a skill you got. It's a tool that's in your toolbox, and you're trying to do what you can to save people. You might as well use it. So I can't blame them for that, if that's something that they want to do. Not all female heroes do that. Not all male heroes do, similar things. But, not all female heroes do that while they're just like, oh, I'm just so cute and pretty, and you just don't want to hurt me, and then they'll smack you upside the head and beat the heck out of you. But, Mount Lady, we have seen kind of go through this process of shifting in her, interactions with other heroes. She gets along okay in the beginning with like Kamui Woods and like Death Arms and such, and Gunhead, and gets along okay with them. And then like, then she gets on the Team Lurkers with her and, Edge Shot and Kamui Woods with the three of them. And so we've seen that. But then, she, kind of proved herself more as a hero when she was willing to, put herself between Bakugo and, letting Bakugo escape and such, with, being saved by Izuku and such, Izuku and Kiroshima and Ida, with them saving, Bakugo, that she was, put herself in harm's way again to protect them. She has like a bratty line, she does, but she's still there, and she's still one of the heroes that have stayed around, as so many other heroes have continually retired. I went off on a tangent on Mount Lady. Sorry, I do like Mount Lady. And then moving on down the line, we have some things that we have some things at UA for some of the teachers there. So Nezu has his scar on his face that is quite prominent, and he does not hide it, and it's even stated in his history. And when we're introduced to Nezu, I believe it is stated that he is was one of the first instances of quirks appearing in animals. And it's also stated that they didn't quite know what Nezu was, like a mouse, bear, dog thing. I heard something where it was he was compared to a chimera because he's got pieces of other animals, not he's stitched together the way that the way that Rocket Raccoon has described himself from the Marvel movies, where he's been ripped apart and stitched together so many times. He doesn't know what he was originally, or he doesn't know where that came from originally. For him, there's no one like me except me, and that does kind of also apply to Nezu. We haven't really seen that many other animals that have a quirk, particularly a quirk that makes him on the intelligence level of a human. And we know that he was experimented on by humans that were trying to figure out, oh, well, this animal has a quirk, so what's going on with this? And, so he was experimented on and kind of tortured in that set. And he gets to let his sadistic side out, of course, when he has to deal with, villains, or during when he's, testing Mina and Kaminari for their final exam and such. He, tests them that way and such. But, he gets to let his sadistic side out a bit. And him and, oh God, do not put him and Midnight on the same team. If it was oh, we get to be sadistic together? Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I guarantee you there has been a time where there's some final exam for a student, and they have to go a group of the students have to go up against two of the teachers, and it's Midnight and Nezu, and they're testing them, and they have to go up against Midnight and Nezu at the same time, and they're working together, and it's just Nezu and Midnight are just to get their sadistic sides run wild. Oh God. Why did I think of that? That's scary. That is very scary, actually. Nezu is adorable, and I know that there are plushies of him, and I want a Nezu plushie because he just looks so cute and adorable and squishy and fun to cuddle. And I would not be, and he also likes to curl up in Izawa's scarf, whenever they're at meetings or so, he just is curled up in Izawa's scarf, and Izawa is just can't you sit somewhere else? Your scarf's so much warmer. I love that. And it's also, he's their boss, but he's also very cute. And okay, I know this has been done in fanfics, but imagine Izuku, because he is so observant when it comes to people's quirks and people's abilities and such like that, similar to the way that Nezu is. Imagine if Izuku had to a degree been raised by Nezu. That would be a scary thing. But that would just be Izuku being so smart. That would just be him blowing everything out of the water. But we're moving away from that. But, so Nezu has those things that he's dealt with that are also internal scars. As I've mentioned, they have, guard dog, or a hound dog at the school, who is their, counselor, their guidance counselor and such. And he's, they've stated before, it's if you're having issues or whatever, go talk to Hound Dog. And there's mental scars that go along with that as well. And I can guarantee you, as I said on one of the other videos that I've done, where I can guarantee you that every single teacher at UA, even just every single teacher at UA that is also a hero, or even just a teacher that may not necessarily be a hero, but it's just a teacher at UA, have mental scars. Every single hero that I've ever mentioned in any of these videos, and have yet to pop up in any of the videos, every single one of them, every single student, that is in the hero course, and possibly to a degree even in the support courses, maybe not so much the finance course or the general studies, but definitely in the where Hatsume is in the support course. I can guarantee you that if they don't have them yet, by the time, that for like the students, if they don't have these mental scars yet, some, mental scars, mental calluses that they've had to deal with and build up, over the time that they're at UA, by the time they graduate, they will have seen stuff. The students that are particularly the ones that are out and about, because I've used, I have Mirio's quote that he has at one point is like the answer for this is the quote on the end of this where he says, "But every scar and painful thing you go through is an important experience that you can't get inside a classroom." And those build up. And, every teacher knows this. Every single, third year, second year knows this. The first years are learning it. Class 1A and Class 1B are learning this. That there is a lot that you have to go through and that you cannot always save everyone. And that you're going to get hurt in the process. And the kids see this with Izawa. Moving on to Izawa. We see this with Izawa when they're at the USJ. And this is the first time where they're interacting with villains. And it's not like they chose to interact with them. It's, Shigaraki and the League of Villains attacked the USJ. They infiltrated the USJ. And I don't know where I stand and if there is a traitor or who is the traitor. I'm leaving that one alone. But, when they're at the USJ and, Izawa is putting himself between Shigaraki and the kids. Between, Shigaraki's decay, quirk, and everything and the kids. Because his elbow nearly gets decayed through, and he, the Nomu like bashes his face into the concrete multiple times, and like breaks like some of the bones in his face, particularly under his eyes, and he's still got the scars from that, and he's gonna have the scars from that, and he's probably got scars on his elbow from like where it was decayed at. And, but he put himself in harm's way to protect his students. Because, like, even when he's, like, so beat up, he still protects Sue from, when Shigaraki has his, fingers on her, has his hand on her. Izawa still, uses erasure to make it that Shigaraki can't hurt Sue in that moment. And we still have that moment. And then, of course, everything that happened, he's, he's takes a bit of time to recover in that, but he still forces himself to go back to class because that's what he's going to do. And he's like all bandaged up and looks like a mummy for a little while at the sports festival. And then, of course, he gets healed. He does get healed by, Recovery Girl, but he still has like the scars under his eyes and such at this point in time. And he says that it affected his quirk and it doesn't last as long as it used to. And, his eyes get dried out more, and that's like the side effect of his quirk is as, his eyes get dried out so much. So that's another thing that goes along with that. And then, of course, in the whole battle that just happened with, well, first off, he does get injured to a degree when they're doing the Yakuza arc, where they're trying to take out the Hasaikai and save Eri and such. He does end up kind of getting hurt during that time frame a little bit. More he gets kind of like paralyzed, but it's not like the way that Ingenium's paralyzed, the way that Tensei's paralyzed. He gets paralyzed by someone's quirk that like freezes him in time, and the dog wants out. So, Izawa has those, but then he has, all of that that's happened to him. But on top of that, he also has his mental scars from everything that happened with Oboro and everything, because we just saw that in the anime with, his whole past with Oboro and Present Mike and Midnight. We didn't really get to see Midnight in that flashback, unfortunately, but that would have been nice. But, she's still part of that group and part of that friends group and such. We had what were they called? The three Demigos. I would look at that more as like, okay, I can see the Present Mike part of that and the Oboro part of that for Loud Cloud, for them being the kind of the Demigos. But Izawa is not stupid, but he's also like, upgraded him, gone through a whole lot of, made, introverted a little bit more after what happened with Oboro, which I talked about Oboro in previous videos. But like, so Ozawa has those mental scars, of course. So does Present Night, and Midnight did as well. And of course, not really too much to talk about Midnight in this video because yeah, she probably has some scars and stuff like that from different things that she's done. But she's not really super that much of like a combat hero. She's, like a diffuse the situation type hero, as I mentioned before, with her quirk and being able to, rip her clothes and make, everybody fall asleep. And she's also, so she has that and everything. I'm sure she had like scars, other scars and stuff like that as well. And she has like mental scars from like losing Oboro and, anything else that's happened. And of course, not really talking about her death in this video again, because I have that other in a different video. But what we see, of course, with, as always, there's those mental scars there, but then he also has, during the whole fight at the, the Paranormal Liberation War arc, he ends up, he gets badly injured in that course as well, and he ends up losing a leg. And, we got to check in with him recently in the manga where he's, check in with him where he's, I was like, yeah, I got this, I got the prosthetic leg and everything. Probably not as, up to, hopping as much as Mirko is, but I'm going to get back to my class because, they're his class, they're his students, they're his children, and he will defend them. And if they need him, then he will get back to them as quickly as he can. Which that's just the way that he is, and that's the way that I'm sure like Flawed King would be the same way for Class 1B, and like I know that Snipe is involved in like the third years, so he'd probably be the same way for them, and there's like other teachers that would do the same thing for their students. And moving on down the list to another teacher, we have 13. She, during the fight with Kurogiri at the USJ, she ends up getting a whole bunch of, because like his quirk, his warp quirk, like ripped apart part of her suit and like was causing lacerations on her. It was of course revealed recently in the manga that, yes, 13 does have a physical body and she is female. I don't know if we've gotten like, hair color or anything like that, but she seemed pretty cute because we saw her with her helmet off and everything finally in the manga when they're bringing Izuku back to UA. She's there, and she got a whole bunch of like lacerations is what they're saying that she got, because like she got like probably a whole bunch of damage done to like her back and such in the fight against Kurogiri and such, and we'll see what else happens with that. We may get a little bit more of like an information on like how her physiology works at some point, or we might get a little bit more of an explanation of that at some point, but we'll see. But she's had injuries that way. We haven't really seen her get any other injuries, but she has those. And then of course, in regards to the whole class, they all have different kind of training scars, as I put them, training scars and from pushing themselves, because when they're at the camp, when they're at the training camp, they're all supposed to push themselves and push their quirks and push their bodies to the limit as much as possible to train their quirks and to train their bodies more and more. And, we see this a little bit more with some than others, like Mineta, it's like his quirk is, the pop off, and he has, his quirk, his training is he has to sit there and like pop the balls off of his head as fast as he can. Because, it's supposed to, like, make his scalp, stronger, because it'll endure it better as he, has to do it more and more, because he doesn't know when he'd have to have a limit of how many of those he can make. Plus, he needs to find his limit and then continually push himself past that limit more and more. To borrow a phrase from Captain Yami of the Black Bulls, push yourself past your limit, go beyond. And that also goes into the plus ultra. Yes, Chris Sabat voices both Yami and All Might. I am aware. He also voices Zoro. And several other characters from anime that I'm very well aware of, and that's just funny at times. But it's just like, oh wait, that's Chris Sabat. Ha ha ha, that was funny. But, so the students have those scars, and, it's like they also have these other moments where it's just like, Ida has... I'll go over some of the stories that Ida has at some point, but or a little bit later in the video. But it's like they all their different training scars that they got, from like training against each other or pushing themselves, and such like that. So we have those moments as well. And they have to push past their limits. And then we get into some more of the individual things. Izuku, of course, has broken his, the first time that he uses his quirk, he breaks his, both legs and one arm, and then was about to break the second one to, stop his fall. To cushion his fall if Araka hadn't saved him. But, when he's, defeating the 0 pointer in order to protect Araka, he, breaks, both legs and one arm. And then continuously throughout the course of the series, at the beginning of it, we see him continually causing more and more damage to his body to use his quirk because he hasn't learned how to regulate it as much, and he hasn't learned how to, lower it to the point where he can release smaller amounts of it. And he, is continuously, breaking his fingers at times and doing his, flicks and hurting himself. And, he even at one point, uses his own mouth at some point and, breaks his arms again in regards to different ways that he's fighting and such like that to release his different, power blasts and such like that. And yes, he's gotten a lot better with it. And being around Gran Torino definitely helped with that to the point where he was definitely able to regulate it more and, not just focus it all in one spot and then release it all from that spot, but work on being able to control the output of it. And he's gotten, currently in the manga, he's, much further down that line, and he's, got his other quirks and such that he's using in regards to that to, heighten his power even more. And those will be so interesting to watch. And the new trailers for the new one for the the World Rescue Mission type thing, that movie, the third one, those trailers just came out recently, and I'm just like, oh god, this looks so good. And they show the scene of Izuku he's around a bridge, whether I don't know if this is the Golden Gate Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge or some bridge, but he's on this bridge and he's swinging around using, Black Whip up and down it was compared to Spider-Man. And I'm like, yes, it is a very apt description, and it might be a reference to Spider-Man. But so they do that. But, so Izuku has gone through those, and of course he, hurt his arm so much when he was fighting against Muscular, trying to protect Koda, and, he's just got all these scars up and down his arms, on his fingers, and he's been told by the doctor, if you break your arms, only 1 or 2 more times, we're not going to be able to fix them because you keep breaking them so much in succession of itself that your body doesn't have time to fully heal it correctly and then build up more of a resistance. And same thing with his fingers, because we see the scars on his fingers and such like that at various points. And he has the big scar on one of his arms from when he fought Muscular. And he wears a compression sleeve at times. Depending on what he's doing, he'll wear a compression sleeve so he doesn't have the scars on display. Whether or not that comes from him just being self-conscious of the scars and not wanting to show them off, or it's more I just don't want to make other people uncomfortable with the scars, so I just cover them up when I need to. His costume already covers them, so that's not a problem. But if he's in his school uniform, we see him with a compression sleeve on. But I know in different fanfics that and this has kind of come from different characters, not just one specific character, but several different characters too. It's yeah, okay, you have scars, big deal. They're kind of ugly, big deal. But they proved that you survived, that you fought your way out of whatever situation you were in, and that you were able to start healing from it. And that's kind of what a lot of the scars show throughout the course of the series. So Izuku has all those. And then we have Bakugo. Bakugo, of course, kind of the more eminent things that we've seen with him is he does tend to hurt himself in his shoulders and his wrists and his in his arms when he overuses his quirk, and he doesn't have his gear set to help with that, because we see this in the first movie. At one point he's using his he's using his quirk, but he's not wearing his costume because they don't have access to their costumes at that point in time. He's using his quirk, and fighting against the villains, and like we see him like, you know, set off a large explosion, and then he's like holding his wrist because like he hurt his wrist in the process, and like, you know, it's, you know, his shoulders and stuff like that, because, you know, it's in all honesty, it's like if you fire a gun, there is that backlash from firing a gun. You set off an explosion point blank like that, there is a backlash from it. And that's what we see with Bakugo. With him setting off those explosions and causing, you know, kind of damage to his own body in that sense, with, you know, like hurting his shoulders. And I know about shoulder pain. I very much know about shoulder pain from working at Goodwill. And, you know, knee pain and such like that as well. But, you know, it's like Bakugo has that. But then also more recently, he has, during the fight against Shigaraki, at the Paranormal Liberation War, he got like hit with a cork that like jabbed through him in like 3 different places in his chest. And like, you know, we're all just like, oh God, please don't be dead, Bakugo. Please don't be dead. We already lost Midnight and a bunch of other heroes. We can't lose you too. So, you know, and like, when more recently in the manga, we did see that he has like scars in those places and such, and like he had to, you know, recover from that. So we've seen that, and in the Heroes Rising movie, he, you know, when him and Izuku are, you know, sharing, you know, One for All, he, you know, breaks both of his arms in the process there, but that's, whether or not that's canon is always up for debate. But then we have Shoto and Kiroshima both have childhood scars. Kiroshima has a scar above his eye from where he, you know, when he was a kid, he like activated his quirk and he like cut himself in the eye, you know, on his, you know, over his, you know, eyebrow at one point when he was a kid. And he's, you know, he's gotten probably some more scars since then. And then Shoto's scars, of course, the big scar on his face, of course, from his mother. But he's also subsequently gained several other scars, and I can guarantee you he's probably got scars or some burn marks from training with Endeavor over the years when he was a child, from that type of forced training that he had to go through. And, you know, Endeavor's let up on that, of course, but Shoto probably still has some of those scars or so. Plus, also, he does still have, like, the, you know, the icing over, the freezing problem from his ice side and the overheating problem from his fire side. So that's why he has to, you know, regulate them better. You know, instead of, like, freezing himself or so. But he's getting better at that, because that could result in, like, if he overused his fire quirk at some point, yeah, that side of his body is more designed to be able to handle that type of heat. But it could end up being, you know, something happens like what happened with Dabi. Like, Dabi has, like, all of his scars and everything, you know, all the different scars and stuff that Dabi has, where it's just like his skin looks like it's about to fall off, but it's, you know, held in place, which is really disturbing to look at. And to understand that, and like, you know, he's burned by his own quirk whenever he uses it, particularly if he overuses it. And, you know, so we've seen that, and like he's got like all the scars and stuff and scar tissue across his chest and stuff like that too. So it'll be very interesting to see, you know, make sure that Shoto doesn't lose his, you know, fire doesn't go out of control like that, like what happens with, you know, with Dabi, with Toya. And then we have Tenya, so we have Ida. He has his arm injuries that he sustained when they were fighting against Stain, because Stain did like stab through at least one, if not both of his arms at one point in regards to, you know, when he was fighting Ida. And Ida, of course, you know, it's like he had his, you know, arms all bandaged up and everything, and he's, you know, it's like, I'm, you know, I need to, you know, my arms being this way will be a reminder of me being more cautious of my actions and such, and he uses that as like a lesson for himself. But then the other part of that is when we find out that Ida ripped out his own engines. Oh God. When, you know, it's like, I forgot about that in the manga, because I was like, I read that in the manga, and I was just like, okay, yeah, no, that sounds painful, and I didn't quite click with me. And then when they went over it in the anime, in the versus arc with the classes versus each other's, with class 1A and class 1B against each other, there's the moment where we get the flashback where Ida's talking with his brother and his mother, and it's like, oh well, there's this thing you can do with your engines, and then we cut to like, you know, a flashback of like Ida out in like the woods area of like UA with like, you know, his like a bite guard on and like a first aid kit next to him, and he's pulling out his own engines out of his own legs. And I mean, like, I get the point of it is that it's like you pull them out and then like they grow back and they've upgraded, they're stronger, and you know, less problems that happen with them. But oh my god, I just like seeing that in the anime. I'm like, oh my god, I forgot about that. Ow, type of thing. That was just like one of those moments where it's just like, how did I forget about that? But you know, so it's like he's done that. And then, you know, we have the moment when like they're all at the training camp where, you know, where Mustard, who we have heard hide nor hair from since then, but, you know, because he would, you know, part of the Vanguard accident where I was like, he's like the least interesting character on this thing. So we'll just leave him alone for now. He's been sitting in Tartarus for a while or somewhere else. Maybe he'll pop back up now that so many villains are on the loose. I don't know. But, you know, he released like the gas that went everywhere. And that made like, you know, like, you know, yeah, certain ones had like the ability to get like the, you know, the face masks and everything, like the gas mask that like Momo had that she made and such. Like they had that you know, had that ability, but not everybody did. So a bunch of the different, you know, like Toru and Jiro from, of course, Class 1A, and then several members of Class 1B all got, you know, poison gas inhalation problems to the point where they were, you know, unconscious for a while. And kind of like probably not in like coma states, but they were definitely unconscious for quite a while they were being treated at the hospital because Izawa states that when they were at the dorms, when they were first brought to the dorms, he's like, and in all honesty, not just these five, referring to Shoto, Izuku, Momo, Ida, and Kiroshima, not just them, but all the rest of you, except for Jiro, Toru, and Bakugo, would all be expelled right now because all of you knew about what they were going to do, what that you know, the Bakugo the Bakugo protection squad, you know, rescue squad were going to do. You all knew about it and didn't tell anyone. So Bakugo was off the hook, and then Toru and Jiro would be off the hook because they were unconscious, sorry, at the time. So they get off the hook. You, on the other hand, would all be expelled. So we know that they were out for a while because of the poison gas. And, you know, obviously them and the rest of Class 1B that were all affected by it all ended up being okay in the end. But there's still that moment there where they have that problem. Toru and Jiro, I don't remember if they've had any other particularly hard injuries or anything like that. Not that I can think of. And then we have Mirko. I believe this is the last one where I'm finishing up for that. Mirko, of course, throughout the short time that we knew him, that we've known him, I mean, like by this point in time, you know, in the manga, we've known him for quite a while, but from the first time that when we're introduced to him all the way up through what happens with the Yakuza arc, we see him, you know, he's talking about, you know, it's like we see him have like these scars on his arm and stuff like that he's gotten with his training and such, between, you know, his training with his permeation quirk and also just his physical training in general. And of course, fighting, he's gotten all these scars on his arms, but he's also, you know, pushed himself. And he, of course, during the time frame when he's fighting against, you know, against the Yakuza, against Overhaul, and, you know, protecting Eri and everything, you know, he's using his quirk to, you know, avoid getting hit by all the spikes that Overhaul is making and protecting Eri and everything. But then, of course, when he's forced to choose between protecting Eri and having her, you know, letting Eri get hit by the Quirk Eraser drug and him getting hit by the Quirk Eraser drug to protect Eri, you know, he chooses to jump in front of Eri and get hit with the drug, and it, you know, erases his quirk. And to a degree, at that point in time, it was assumed permanently. We know since then that Eri has been able to, like, rewind him, has enough control over herself to rewind him so he can have his quirk back, because we saw that he has it back now. him and Izuku need to have a nice big talk, nice long talk about some things. But what ends up happening, it's like he got injured quite a few times when he was protecting Eri. And, he was he got like injured in his legs and in his arms. And like we saw him take like a good jab in the chest from those spikes and everything as he's protecting Eri during that whole time frame. And, and then he gets the mental scars on top of the fact that he, watches his mentor die, basically. So we add those mental scars on there. But, and I wish they had shown a little bit more in the manga and in the anime of, like, him having to deal with some of that. Because as upbeat of a person as Mirko is, and I love Mirko, he's great. If it had been anyone else to become All Might's successor, barring the whole fact of, like, it probably would have killed Mirko because of, One for All. But if he had been the chosen successor, I think it would have been in amazing hands as well, if it wasn't going to destroy him. But, from what we've learned. But he would have been an amazing successor for All Might. That would have been perfectly fine. But, and we see that, but I just kind of wish that they had showed a little bit more of, like, his internal struggle with dealing with some of the fact of, like, him not having a quirk anymore. And yeah, he doesn't blame Eri for that. He chose to jump in front of the quirk erasure bullet. He chose to jump in front of that and take that, so Eri didn't have to, and chose to continue protecting her, even after he no longer had his quirk to help him. And, so there is that. But I wish that they had shown him having to go through a little bit more of his, mentally having to deal with that and face that. Yeah, we have the moment where, like, he talks with Izuku when they're at the hospital, and, like, Izuku kind of says, well, what if there's a way for you to have a quirk, for you to receive a quirk from someone else? And, Mirko's like, no, I'm just going to keep training myself, and at some point, maybe they'll find a way to reverse it, and I can have my quirk back. And, of course, he does. Now, in the manga, he does, and we'll see what happens, what else down the line with that. That's going to be a good moment in the anime when he pops up and, helps save people at that point in time during that battle. But there's also the moments where, he is to a degree putting on a brave face for Eri when he's around her and a brave face for Izuku, but I wish that they had showed a little bit more of, like, him not always being the smiley, happy person. Not that that's not what Mirko is, but it would have been nice to see some more of them having to deal with some of the other emotional hurdles that you would have to go through in regards to that. Because it's like, yeah, it is an emotional hurdle you have to go through. You have this quirk that you've had your entire life, and this part of you, and now it's gone. And, like, you've been using it to train, and yeah, he can still go to UA, and he can still do the other classes and such with Nejire and with Amajiki, but he can't actually be, out there fighting. He's part of, helps train, Class 1A. He's like, the person that they have to save from drowning at one point when they're doing the, the villain attack simulation and such. So we have that, but, so there's that moment, but, it would have been nice to see him have to go through a little bit more of some not mental gymnastics, but, like, a little bit more of, like, a mental reckoning of the fact of, yeah, I don't have a quirk anymore. And yeah, that's effing sucks because I've been training so hard for the past, however many years to master my quirk and everything. And, now I don't have a quirk anymore, but I'm going to continue to do my best and such. But that's just kind of the way that Mirko is. So I would like it if they showed a little bit more of that, but so there's the mental scars that go with that too. And of course now he has his quirk back because of Eri. And Eri herself, of course, has, like, all these scars on her and such from Overhaul. From him literally, like, ripping her apart and putting her back together again and again, over and over again, doing his research on her. And his research on her quirk and everything, and making the quirk erasure bullets and making the trigger and everything. And she's going to have a lot of mental scars she's got to get over. And, she'll have physical scars possibly for the rest of her life unless she gets to the point where she can, like, erase them herself. But I don't know, or, like, rewind them herself. But I don't know. I don't remember if it's stated if Eri can use her quirk on herself or not. She can use it on others. I would assume she would be able to use it on herself, but... and once she gets to the point where she can use her quirk to the point where she can master it, Then, the next time Izuku breaks his arm or something like that, or someone else breaks their arm or their leg or something, or I think I mentioned this with like Tensei at some point, that like maybe Eri can go and, like rewind Tensei just to the point to before he, was hurt by Stain, so that way he can have his physical mobility back fully. And, be able to then, him and Ida can be, heroes together, can both be like Ingenium 1 and Ingenium 2 together and such. And, because her quirk is not the same as what happens with, Recovery Girl. Eri just literally rewinds it. Recovery Girl heals it, but it doesn't heal it perfectly. So, but that's what we have there for like the list of scars and injuries. A little bit longer of a video than I had originally intended it to be, but I went off on a couple of tangents. Sorry. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And I will say this here, and I think I may have said it before. Well, I said it a little bit ago in the video that, like, for people that have scars, whether they're from surgery or from an injury or from something else, mental problems that you've had, yeah, you may think those scars are ugly, but just remember the fact that those scars represent the fact that you fought through something, that you got through something, that you're trying to get away from that thing that hurt you, that you're fought your way out of the thing that hurt you, fought your way out of the depression, out of the, the injury, that you've healed from the injury. Maybe not fully, but you're getting there. And just, I'll put that there just because that's just kind of something that I like. And I've seen that in fanfics, and I've seen that in other stuff. And I wish that people would put that up there a little bit more. That's like, yeah, you have those scars, but they're scars that prove that, yeah, you may have gotten to a very low and a dark point, but you fought your way back from there. And that we want you to keep fighting. Or at least I want you to keep fighting. Because I have not been to that spot, but I've had people in my life that have been to that spot. And unfortunately, they didn't come back from it. So whenever anybody does come back from it, I applaud them. You may keep going back there, but as long as you keep fighting your way back, and hopefully you find people that'll help you fight, then that's the important thing on that one. So that's what I have there. A little bit different than where I wanted to go with that. But I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Pros can get hurt, and sometimes they end up watching people die. But every scary and painful thing you go through is an important experience you can't get inside a classroom. Even at UA, I transformed the experience I got in my work study into power. That's how I got to the top spot. And that's why I think they're worth it. Even if you're scared. You with me, first years?